Michelle Lupton here, back with another Challenge Me a Christmas card challenge card. So today I'm making a card based on the challenge that was set to me by an old schoolmate of mine, Lisa. She has been travelling around the world all year with her family, which includes her husband and her 4 daughters. They've been going all over the place, just backpacking around the world. So her challenge to me was to make a Christmas card with the theme A Year of Travel. So I thought I would start with some maps. So I wanted to make a bauble with a map of the world on it, but of course it's very difficult to actually fit the entire map of the world on a single bauble. I think there's one company, I think it might be Altenew, who has a stamp of a bauble with a map of the world on it. I can't remember how much of the world it has on it. It might have a fair bit. But anyway, I wanted to basically have 3 baubles, each with a large chunk of the map of the world on it. So what I did is I cheated because I don't have any stamps of maps on them. All I did, very, very high tech this is, I took a piece of greaseproof paper from the kitchen, which you can see right now, and I basically Googled some very simple maps of the world, and I found 3 of them that were in a series, and I traced them off my computer screen. Really high tech. And then, as you can see, I just scribbled on the back of the tracing paper and then traced them onto some Canson watercolour cardstock, and that's what you can see here. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking 2 Zig Clean Colour Real Brush markers, one in sort of a mid-green colour, which is this one, and then later on in a blue colour. And I'm tracing around my pencil marks, and of course you won't see the pencil marks by the end of it because it'll be too dark, basically around the map. So this particular map, as you can see, is Southeast Asia, Australia and New Zealand, and a little bit of the edge of India. So I traced around the edge of the land masses and the islands with this green, and then on the larger land masses I faded the colour out towards the centre of the continent with my water brush, which you can see me doing here. Then I went back in, and with the blue marker, which is quite a dark blue marker, this is my favourite of the Zig markers, my favourite colour, I traced around with a very light hand, as light as I could go, around all of the shorelines, basically, all the coasts. And so the aim was to get the darkest colour of both the green and of the blue closest to the coasts of these land masses. And then I'm doing the same thing. I'm going back in with my water brush and shading the colour out, basically fading it out so that the centre of the oceans would be a pale blue colour, but closer in towards the shorelines would be a much darker colour. Now, I have to make an apology right here because, well, actually 2 apologies. One is that I know that by the shape of the maps that I've copied here, I haven't copied them very faithfully, and some of the places in the world I know people are just going to cringe and go, "What on earth is she doing? It looks ridiculous." I apologise. The other apology I have to make is that a bit later on, when I actually cut this particular map out with a bauble shaped die, I cut off New Zealand. I'm really sorry. And I've got a few friends over in New Zealand, so I do apologise. It wasn't intentional. I thought I would just catch New Zealand right on the bottom right hand edge of it, but no, New Zealand got cut out. I do apologise. Anyway, I know some of the other maps look really dodgy, but I tried my best. I really did. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of the colouring of all three maps. I just wanted to show you this one in detail and up close so you could basically see what I was doing with it. But the other ones I did pretty much the same thing. So I'm just starting this one. So I've got one map that shows Europe and Africa and a little bit of Asia, and the other one shows the Americas. So right now I'm taking these bauble dies, which are from a Stampin' Up set of dies that actually matches one of their stamp sets. I'm not entirely sure if this stamp and die set is still available, not entirely sure. Anyway, I will link all of the information for these dies and stamps and everything that I'm using on my blog. So now I've got all three of my baubles painted and cut out. Now I started arranging them on the card, and the painting of the maps took quite a while. The arranging of these baubles on the card and trying to decide what I was going to do with them took a lifetime. Seriously, I don't know what it is with me. It just takes me way too long arranging things. But one thing I did want to do is have a pop of red. I also wanted to have the sentiment as joy to the world because I thought that was appropriate. So I actually found another die set, also from Stampin' Up. This particular one, this word joy, comes from a set that actually has stamps and layering stamps actually and a die to give a wreath. It's a really gorgeous wreath that I've used multiple times in previous years for Christmas cards. But the word has the word joy and the word Noel in them as well. But I put it on top of the maps and I found that I didn't get enough contrast between the word joy and the map, so I thought I'd give it a matte of vellum. But I made a mistake here. I started cutting it out before the glue had really stuck this die properly to the vellum. So I came to the point where I was like, I have to stop now. So I put an acrylic block on top of it, let it sit there for a while, which is what I should have done in the first place. And then once it was actually stuck good and proper, that's when I went back and cut out the vellum. Now, I know that in recent times, a lot of companies have brought out stamps with dies that actually cut a sort of shadow or halo around the words, and I just love that look. But I don't actually have any of those dies for Christmas, so I just had to cut around by fussy cutting. Now, the rest of the sentiment for Joy to the World, I don't actually have a stamp that just says to the world. Excuse me. So I found this old stamp from Annabelle Stamps. This is a company, unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore, so this stamp is not available. Annabelle Stamps was an Australian stamp company, and this particular stamp just had to the world at the bottom of beautiful joy, which I've used so many times, but I thought I could ink it up separately without getting the word joy in there. So that's what I've done. I just inked it up with my Versamarker pen and have white embossed it onto some black cardstock and just cut it down to a little strip. Now, again, with the trying to rearrange these baubles and trying to figure out how I'm going to lay out this card, I just cut a little banner end onto this black cardstock strip with the little bit of the sentiment on it. And I was originally going to have that hanging off the edge of the card and then just cut flush with the edge of the card, but later on I decided that I wanted it to have banner edge on both sides. So I've cut out probably a good 20 minutes of me rearranging these baubles and the sentiment and everything on the front of the card. I decided that having all white behind these baubles was just too much, but I didn't want a pattern behind it because I thought that would be too much as well in the opposite direction. So I got some fog cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, cut a little panel out of it using a die, a stitched rectangles die from Lil Incas. just to create a little bit of interest in the background, but not much. So the focus is still on the sentiment and on those baubles, but it wasn't looking too stark in the background. And after lots and lots of trial and error, I eventually came to a decision on how I was going to lay these baubles out, and I'm just assembling the card here. So I didn't want to put too much dimension. The little banner that says "To the World" is going to be popped up onto some foam adhesive. But I stuck down the joy part of the sentiment first using some Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and didn't make the same mistake that I made the first time. I decided this time, right, I'm going to put the acrylic block on it and let it sit there for a little while before doing anything else, because I didn't want it to come up like it did before. So I'm just using some foam tape to add behind the rest of the sentiment. And at this point, when I was holding it up against the card, I thought, I don't really want it to go right to the edge of the card. I thought that would make the right edge of the card a bit too heavy, so I decided to cut down the other end of the sentiment into a banner as well, so that it wouldn't go right to the edge. Because of course the Y sort of goes over the edge. The Y from the word joy goes over the edge of the card, and the on the other side of the card, one of the baubles goes over the edge, so I didn't really want anything else to go over the edge as well. Now, I couldn't just have those baubles just floating in the middle of nowhere, even though the Earth does kind of sort of sit in the middle of space. I didn't want that look. I wanted them to look actually like baubles. So I pulled out this little stamp from Newton's Nook stamp set, beautiful baubles, and I added that just above the baubles, but I wanted to extend the string so they went right to the top. So I actually went over the stamp and extended it a little bit in one case with a gold marker. And that's pretty much it for this card, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are enjoying all the videos that I'm doing for my Challenge Me a Christmas Card series, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!